Who said size doesn't matter? Look at this thing. This is a 7x15 Love custom drum, aluminum snare drum, 15 inches. That's huge. Look at this. Anyway, you know what also is huge? The problem of drummers like you getting injured. It drives me nuts. It pisses me off to think about you having to stop playing drums because of injuries, aches, and pains in your body. This beautiful instrument deserves to be respected by you. So today we're going to talk about the one simple hack, the common thread amongst all of these videos that I've done that you can take away right now to make sure you never get injured, or if you are hurting, to make sure you can continue playing no matter the game. So listen, the number one reason drummers stop playing the drums, besides having kids, I got kids, that happens, I still play though, is injury. And I have heard way too many stories of superstar drummers struggling with aches and pains. I mean, even the late Neil Peart, who lived really close to me, actually, struggled with back pain and was one of the reasons why he didn't do some of the larger tours for Rush near the end. And that bums me out. No matter what, if he's getting older, and that's a bummer, you shouldn't have to succumb to injuries. And I will tell you, my professional practice as a fitness professional in Newmarket with my gym, Strata Internal Performance, I work with seniors, old people with major arthritis, and they can still do awesome stuff. If they're damaged and they're at the far end of the continuum, closer to the end of things, if you know what I mean, you as a young, healthy person can stay far away from all those injuries. Or if you've had an injury, you can follow some basic principles to make sure you never get injured. Very quickly, if you haven't watched any of these videos, I would encourage you to go back and check out all the drum set ergonomic stuff to this point. But you'll notice that in every video, I talk about this thing called active range of motion. This common thread amongst everything we do comes down to two simple ideas. What will your architecture let you do? And based off of what your architecture will let you do, what will your muscles let you do right now? And that leads into something called active range of motion or resisted range of motion, depending on the context. So first and foremost, step one, you have a lot of bones in your body. Each one of your bones in your system have some unique shapes and bony bumps on them. As you can see, we got a bony thing here and a bony thing here. And a lot of these bony things have a convex and concave side. In this case, it's not really like that, sort of concave, convex of these articular facets. And they come together and they create a synovial joint system with either hyaline cartilage in between. In this case, we actually have discs in between these two vertebral bodies. The shape of the structure, the architecture, will determine how much function you have available and which planes of motion you can move. So in essence, if you look at this thing here, and I've got it squished together, you can see that these little bumps here, they move front to back okay. There's nothing in the way. But if I try and turn, they hit each other, and they actually make a clicking noise, as you can hear here. So what that means is that this joint system can do front to back motion pretty well, but side to side, not super well. Why is that important? Well, this gives us degrees of freedom and degrees of restraint of what this joint is capable of doing. It also lets us know, based off the motion it has available, how far it can go each direction. And this is why someone like me, a 200-pound, 5'10" gentleman, versus someone who is a much younger, limber yoga person, has far more mobility, is that my structure doesn't let me move the same degree as someone who's been practicing yoga or has a joint structure that's shaped and conducive towards yoga. I'll tell you, most people don't get injured in the middle of the freeway. They get injured when they hit the guardrails or they go off the freeway. And so with this joint system, all the motion I have available in the mid-range is all fair game. But when I get to the end, I get into the parking spot or I get to the guardrail and I bump into the end, that's usually where injuries and strains happen. So if we can figure out what our range of motion capability is for everything, for the ergonomics, our active motion, if we're using a drumstick, whatever it may be, we can stay in a really solid and healthy spot. This is huge, staying within our active range of motion. Now, number two, our skeletal muscle is a tension generating machine. We have so many muscles on our body, but our muscles, regardless of the anatomical names and the position of them, like, you don't need to get into all that biomechanical stuff. I've studied that stuff ad nauseum, and it is so much. But I will tell you the very simple Coles note is that despite what I talked about with the skeletal system and what you may learn with anatomical skeletal muscle, is if you want to know what your body is capable of doing, grab the device like a drumstick, hold yourself in the position that you're going to be playing the drum set, and then pull your wrist back as far as you can without losing or sacrificing that technique. As you can see here, this is my wrist's active range of motion with the way I'm holding the sticks right now into extension and at my elbows at 90 degrees. And when I go the other way into flexion, this is as far as I can go this way. So here my wrists get tight. I don't like how that feels. When I come back here, my wrists get tight. I don't like how that feels. So on both ends of the continuum, there are sensations of my end joint range that's not super great. Now the thing is, if we're in playing mode and we're going crazy with the sticks, which is super cool, if I'm actually smashing on a China cymbal or something and my wrist is getting thrown back because of inertia, back smash. This back before I change direction is typically where most people end up injuring themselves. And this is where, even if you take traditional technique and you just to check your range of motion without using letting it leave your fingers, you can see that I have limited amount of supination available. And so if the stick's constantly smashing into my end range, things could get hurt. So what we want to try and do is figure out what positions am I going to be playing the drums, and what active range of motion do I have available, and are my instruments positioned in a way where it's going to be favorable for the drumstick, at least on this side of the equation, coming back to me. And this goes for bass drum pedals and drum thrones and really everything in between. Truth is, even me sitting in this chair, this isn't a drum throne, but this drum seat has been adjusted based off of my individual proportions and based around my unique body. So here's the number one hack. Check your active range of motion and make sure you have some motion available left over. So if I'm going to play snare drum table and I'm going to hit the table, when I hit the table with the drumstick is going to experience some forces of the table pushing back into me. I want to make sure my wrist is in kind of a neutral position. If I hit something, like this is my end range, and at the end range here, I'm hitting something like a cymbal, and it's pushing my wrist further back into extension, well, now we are getting to the continuum of this is as far as the car can go on the highway before it smashes into the guardrails. And that car can only hit the guardrails so many times before that paint chipping turns into damage and a bigger problem. So the number one take home is check your active range of motion and make sure you have full control over that range of motion, and adjust your cymbal setup, especially you gratuitous cymbal and drum setup metal people. Make sure if you've got a ton of cymbals and drums that every drum is angled and positioned in a way that no matter how you're hitting it, that you're not hitting it at end range of motion, and you're not accidentally being shoved back into end ranges. Because I'll tell you, if you are smashing and repetitively moving at end range positions over and over and over again, you're going to get injured, and that's not going to be super cool. Work within your active range of motion, and I guarantee you, you will never get injured as long as you progress properly. And second, this kind of last thing, if you're hurting, like for example, for me, I've got all this range of motion available right now. I do have ganglion cyst, and once in a while they stop me from playing, but I can keep playing if I figure out how far I can go, and I practice controlling that 45-degree motion where I don't get pain. So even though my joint is available to do 0 to 90 degrees in this extended pronated position, I might have pain at the 90 and maybe even the 55 degrees. But if I can go 0 to 45 and I can work within it, I can keep playing. This active range of motion idea is something that changes a little bit every day based off of your body's peripheral and central fatigue. Totally different anatomy, nerdy things, but truth is, check how far you can move, and if you stay within it, you won't injure yourself, and that's super cool. Keep playing drums. Stronger drummers play longer. Let's go.